Welcome to the Leafy Podcast, helping real estate investors and entrepreneurs grow. Say hello to your hosts, Jennifer Gligoric and Brian Price, founders of Leafy Legal Services, teaching you how to protect your assets, grow your business, and manage your wealth. Let's start the show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Leafy Podcast. Thank you again for being here today. And we have Jennifer, our host today, online with us. She is the COO and co-founder of Leafy Legal Services. She has an awesome guest for us today, so I'll go ahead and pass it on to her. Jennifer?
Well, today's guest, we were going to have on the show earlier because I really wanted him to come on in because he has experience in tertiary investments, which we haven't talked about before. So our guest today has a 50-year contract with the military. He's currently in his 5th year. He is the owner of a vertically integrated company with a mission of building and growing communities from single-family investments to multifamily investments and commercial raw land and mixed use. So this is, of course, quite interesting to me. He also is focused in the following areas of Texas, Oklahoma, Maryland, and California. So I really want us to give a great big Leafy hand of applause to Solomon Floyd with Reunion Investments LLC. Welcome to the show, Solomon.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me. I truly appreciate it.
We had a real rocky start this morning because it is April 1st. So I don't know, April Fool's Day is driving us nuts. So tell us a little bit about tertiary investments and what you do. How did you get into this? How were you able to get your contract? That's too many questions at once. Just start talking, Solomon.
Gotcha. Yeah, no worries. So basically how Reunion operates is very simple. We focus in areas where there are military communities, primarily for the fact that ever since the history of time, the military has always been paid on time. And myself as a veteran, I've always been, very keen to identify these sort of things and be able to say, hey, listen, there's this area that people aren't really focusing on as investors because there's no upside opportunity for them, or at least they think that. But they fail to realize is that the military is one of the most underappreciated markets to ever walk the earth, and they get paid by you, the United States people. And they get paid on time every time, which means for us, rent payments will never be late. In times like this of the coronavirus, we have no issues with them going out and spending money because there's going to be more money to come. And so how we got started was we focused primarily on building or rehabbing homes for people in these markets because nobody else was doing that. And the housing situation on military bases it's very hit or miss. Sometimes it's good, but for the most part, it's really bad. You got things like black mold, fungus issues, lead paint issues, asbestos issues, and all of this for housing military members. And we deemed that unacceptable, so we decided, hey, let's go rehab 100 homes for people. Well, it turns out all those homes got rented. And when we did it for ourselves, we were making hand over fist the ability to just provide better housing and have people live better lives. So then investors started coming to us and saying, hey, can you do this for us? And so we started doing it for them, and then more people started coming. So when we started developing more solutions, Reunion itself ended up creating a lot more joint ventures and more of the individualized investment real estate plays where people could put their money either as a single investor or pool it with a group of other investors to go develop projects from single family housing to multifamily commercial to mixed use to everything you could possibly think of.
I love that. You see, I was a military spouse back in the 90s on Fort Hood. And at the time, it was the largest military base in the world. And it was a drive-on base. Times have really changed since then. Yeah. And on-base housing was not just hit or miss. It was pretty much miss, and it was at that time, because it was so large and it was so hard for the MPs to patrol, we also had the problem of, everybody lived in groups. So you'd have all these families with like 1-9 cav, and we all lived like together. Well, when all the guys mostly it was men at that point, would get deployed, then petty crime would rise. It would become more unsafe because people could drive on and it was just hard to do it. So you'd get like robberies and things like that. It was scary. So of course, the first thing we did is move off base, right? And there was lots of problems. There was asbestos, they were doing the best that they could, but at the time, it just, there was a lot of issues in the military at that time. We had to move from stamps for food stamps to what they called the Lone Star card, which was the first time a card was used for food stamps. Before that, it was actual stamps. And more people started seeing soldiers in uniform having to use stamps, asking, why are our soldiers need this for food? Or why aren't we paying for that? And so they made the card so, for ease, but I also think it was a public perception of it, that they realized how difficult it really was for most military families, and things I think have started to change on that. So I find that really interesting that you get out there, you realize it's a problem, and now you're able to make money and help other people make money by solving a very important problem, but also supporting our military, which right now, we are filming this when we're all under quarantine. In fact, the president just announced another 30 days. They're looking at the models and constantly changing the models, and they feel like if we do what we're supposed to do, that we can stop it before it gets, as bad as it's going to be. But our military has been critical. I mean, they just built a 2,600 bed hospital in Manhattan, and then they took over Central Park and put up these other things, and the ship came. I mean, it's like amazing what's going on. So tell me a little bit about your typical investor. What is their minimum investment? Who is your typical investor, or do you even have one that wants to partner with Reunion Investments?
So ideally, we don't really have a typical investor. We used to, when we first got started, to kind of streamline things, but as we realized, everybody from the mailman to, America's top CEOs all want to invest in products like these. Primarily one, because through our DoD contract, our rents are relatively guaranteed. Again, as I said last time, like, no one's not going to pay the military. That would be the dumbest thing anybody would ever do. Right. So government shutdown, coronavirus quarantine, whatever it is, we're always going to have our payments. And I think a lot of people realize that that's a huge upside. So, we have a lot of people, coming to us now who've exited the stock market and are like, we need to turn this into something that cash flows immediately. And we're being the vehicle behind that. So from anybody who's interested, the general minimum we have for any of our passive JV opportunities is about $25,000. And if you want to own a home yourself outright, you're looking at anywhere from $70,000 to $100,000 is what we prefer that you have. Now, the biggest thing a lot of people do when they hear that is, oh, well, I've got $70K saved up. I don't want your life savings. That's not what I'm asking you to invest with. If you have money allocated for real estate, that's the type of investor we're looking to bring on, because real estate is unpredictable as much as any other investment is. If something happens and that's your life savings, that's it. And we do not want to, one, be responsible for that. Two, we want to make sure that we can ensure that your investment safety is key. We prefer that our investors protect themselves before investing.
I want to thank you for saying that. And I've got to say, we've had some of the top real estate investment portfolio people here on our show, and we've been on their show. And I want to put a special note to any real estate investors that are listening. The people that you want to invest with are people that will tell you this. What can you afford to invest? What do you actually have? And what do you have allocated for this? That is a very important question that you're going to want a potential investment partner to be able to ask you. Not how much do you have, or how can you put about how much do you have on all your credit cards and all your savings and that. If someone is asking you that, that's not the person to invest in. They're not a professional investor, and they're not looking for professional investors. That's not the way to do it. So I do appreciate that you stated it like that, because there's a lot of noise out there, and a lot of people just say, well, you're not taking risks now, especially now. I believe now is the time to take risks, but you don't want to take that risk with everything. It has to be an acceptable risk, one that you knowingly go into thinking, if I lost this all, would it just completely tank me, right? Well, exactly. That's not acceptable. So tell me a bit how important community is and what you're doing with your economic development right now.
Yeah, so Reunion itself is very special in the fact that we don't just focus on, the one aspect of real estate, which is what a lot of other companies will do. And, do what you're best at, right? For me, it's more about, we will take a series of single family homes in one neighborhood, and we'll rehab them, make them look better to add that value. And then the second part of that is, well, we've already created value in the single family housing side. What would make this more attractive for people to live here? Well, why don't we create a little shopping center with a pizza restaurant, a dry cleaners, a gas station, and a bar. For us and the military members that we serve, that is some of the key things that they love to be a part of, that they love to have. And it's readily accessible, it's walkable, and it's new, it's beautiful. So now we've created value. Well, on top of that, now the civilians who live in these military markets have a new place to work. And we don't bring in restaurants that pay minimum wage, that pay low wages. And for most of our restaurants that we have, we don't allow them to tip people. We are all about the hourly wage and a livable hourly wage. Now those people are going to need housing. So we say, hey, they're going to want to walk to work as well. Why don't we create an apartment down the street where these people who can work at this pizza shop, the dry cleaners, the gas station, where they can all live. And now we've created a little small economy where people have jobs, housing, and the ability to spend their money somewhere. And it stays within that little community. And that's how economic development works on a small scale with Reunion.
We have a Marine Corps, like in a Coast Guard unit here in Galveston. So I just want to put that little bug in your ear, because if you ever come down here, I would be so interested in that, because when you live in any sort of resort town, and many resort towns, especially ones in the water or major ports, have military there, something like that is exactly what you're talking about, brings so much value, not just for the military personnel, but the community as a whole. It basically changes that town that you're in and makes that town a place that increases the tax base. You have better employers, you have a better quality of people that are coming in wanting to work there, and you're getting better services. And I'm a huge advocate of not paying the $2.12 for wait staff. I mean, I was a waitress back in the day. Can't say I was a very good waitress. I have to, I didn't, whatever. But, it's tough. That is a grind job, right? And I think now more and more people are realizing how much we took advantage of that, because there are people right now going, God, remember when we could just sit with people in these things called restaurants? It's only been like a month, right? But still, we need to think about this. This needs to be in the collective consciousness that we need to put out. So Tammy, be sure to outquote that when you do, because I am such an advocate of this. So tell me a little bit about, for an investor who's going, this is aligning with my vision of what I want to invest with, because this is something I would feel great in investing my money. Take me to a typical project life cycle.
Absolutely. So generally speaking, our first thing is, we want to get to know you. Investing in Reunion is different than investing with most companies, because we want to make sure that you're going to be the right fit for us. We operate in areas where a lot of people don't have a lot of information, don't have a lot of research, and it's based off of trust. So we want to make sure that, one, you can trust us, and two, we can trust you. So that's about a week or so of us vetting you and you vetting us. A week of being on the phone, sending emails, text messages, messenger pigeons, whatever it is. We want to get to know who you are. If your vision is in line with our vision, then we present you the opportunities. And those opportunities, again, they range from everything in the possible world. Right now, we're primarily looking for the passive investors for our short-term JVs. And those are very simple, because essentially they take the money that you put in the stock market and took out during the coronavirus panic, and it puts you into a short-term 3 to 6 month project that allows you to sell it off or hold it as a rental. So that way you have money that you can enter back into the market with. And that's our big thing. We formulate strategies that make sense for our investors, and that makes sense for the communities that we serve. So once we have a community identified, we present that information to each investor, and we say, hey, this is what's going to happen here. And then we show you the bigger picture. It's not just, you're going to get the one house. It's, you're going to get this one house, but around this one house, there are 6 other homes. There's a little shopping center going in. We're bringing in a solar panel company or whatever. And we're showing you the entire life cycle of where that value is being brought. From there, that is anywhere from 3 to 6 months time frame to get from point A to point B. When you want to rent your homes, we do identify your renters about 2 weeks prior to your home being completed during the rehab process. And from there, you have your renter in there. So once your renter leaves, we know 3 months and 6 days before your new renter shows up. which means your vacancy rates are relatively low. After that, you repeat the same cycle. So it's basically identify, purchase, rehab, rent, repeat.
So it's kind of a modified Brrrf strategy, but in a tertiary market, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah. So if a client has a profitable portfolio, you do tweaks, right? So this is not like a one-time deal, what you're saying. You're saying that you're constantly speaking to them. Once that's done and over, you can tweak their profile, you can change it, you can look at other things with them, correct?
Exactly. And that's the whole concept, is creating the most value for not only our clients, but also our renters and the communities that we serve.
Mm-hmm. And so how are other ways that investors can make great returns in markets in a tertiary market right now?
I think ideally they're going to be the one places that aren't really going to be that affected by the coronavirus, to be 100% honest with you. They may have cases, but I mean, their community infection rate can go down a lot because they have a little bit more control of their markets. So right now, a lot of these tertiary markets don't have things like Uber Eats. They don't have things like, Lyft or anything that can deliver that food from point A to point B. So they're having to go and wait in lines. I think now is the time for people to start realizing that these tertiary markets are going to be perfect for those apps. It creates jobs, it creates demands, and it allows these smaller businesses to stay open and be able to serve the community as a whole. On top of that, there are tons of other ways that people can also do what they need to do. My biggest thing comes down to call centers. Ever since the coronavirus outbreak happened, I haven't gotten a single call. If you can hire people in those tertiary markets, you effectively can create any sort of at-home, stay-at-home business for half the cost that it would cost you to do it here in a place like Dallas. And the reason for that is because the tertiary market concept is I can pay somebody $15 an hour and they can live out there on $15 an hour. That can be their life at $15 an hour. And that itself is a lot. It means a lot because now they have the ability to spend that money on extra things, right? That is clothes, that is food, that is everything in the foreseeable future in the world, while also creating yourself the ability to serve everybody around the country. So you can create and basically move a small business to a tertiary market and still succeed.
Yeah, I mean, that's our background. Like for the last decade, not only have I been a real estate investor, but I came from being a crisis intervention specialist, building businesses, right? So I would go in and everybody was on fire and I'd put them out. I'd figure out, well, how did y'all get on fire, right? And then we'd fix it. And then the last decade, it was growing businesses with remote talent using primarily US remote workers. My biggest scale up was taking a company of 3 people to 221 people globally in 21 countries within 18 months. And I got to tell you, when you think outside the box, and now we're forcing companies to think outside the box, right? The idea of, wait a minute, you don't have to go pay someone in another country that's in a different time zone that's going to have difficulty communicating with your client base when you can have someone here doing it that's able to communicate with you, the customers are happier with you, and you're putting money back into the community. How much more important it is. We're seeing it on manufacturing right now, how we have crippled ourselves in many cases because we have outsourced manufacturing to the point that now we're seeing Abbott Labs, they have a 15-minute coronavirus test. They have just shipped out 500,000 of these tests that are now in labs. The only problem is many of the doctors don't know about it. So they're sending their tests, they're overwhelming their same old labs instead of realizing that now there's like 7 labs that can do these tests, right? That's the power of American manufacturing. And you're seeing the power of other people sending people home. And the idea that it can create not only living wages, but it can revitalize small towns, and it also can reduce population densities in these mega centers that are really not healthy. And we're seeing it. New York City, that is not healthy when you're living like bees in pods, right? So this concept is not just let's make some money with a tertiary market, with Reunion Investments. It's the idea of, if we start investing like this, anyone who's listening, you can change the world, and we could make the living conditions for so many people so much better, right? In the long run. I mean, we have a chance to do a lot of things here. I'm just so excited that we're getting to talk to you now, because before this all happened, this was all pie in the sky. But now that it's happened and we've seen Raytheon, P&G, the MyPillow guy, you know, all this other stuff changing, pivoting, and so many other things. Now, what was considered kind of like this esoteric thought is now in the consciousness. So I really hope that you're going to get calls left and right, which I think you probably are. So for a new investor that's like, okay, I have this cash, I'm going to take some money out of a 401k. I'll go ahead and take the hit because I don't feel like this is, you know, good enough for me. Or let's say they roll it over. Most people are going to want to roll it over into like a solo 401k where they're not taking that big of a penalty, and now they have their own checkbook control power, and they want to invest with you. What is the time frame? You said it's just a week to get them onboarded, and do you have open projects right now? What does that look like for a new person before they can actually invest and see a return right now?
Absolutely. So we've actually brought on more people, primarily, like we said, right, starting these call centers in these tertiary markets where these people can onboard, vet, and get the right information to the right people as soon as possible. But on top of that, it comes down to, we've got projects all over the place. At the end of the day, you know, focusing in these military markets is going to ensure a lot of capital gains for many people who are going to want what they need. So we do have projects that are open for single investors who want to buy homes on an individual basis. We do have our JV opportunities, and their minimum buy-ins are, again, anywhere from that $25,000 range to about $50,000. And then we have some of our other funds that we've created too. So for those people who do just want to let their money go to work and, you know, they don't really want to be as actively involved, we do have those passive opportunities as well that will still generate the same, if not higher, returns.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so we've been talking with Solomon Floyd of Reunion Investments. So you can look him up at reunioninvestmentsllc.com. He's on LinkedIn at reunion-investments-LLC, and he is on Facebook at Reunion Investments. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave us with before we go?
Yeah, guys. So ideally, you know, this time is going to be challenging for a lot of us, and it's up to very, very many people to kind of figure out what the next steps are going to be. I say do your best to support your small and local businesses as best as possible. And if it's a place that has to be open during the daytime with people inside of it, find a way to innovate. Now more than ever, you're going to be looking for some things that are going to help you boost your portfolio. And I mean, 2008 was a very, very good reminder that this is the right time to go ahead and start investing and buying, because once we get past all of this, which we will, you're going to see the very big rise, and a lot of people are going to have some missed opportunities. So find the opportunity, take the opportunity, because it won't come around for another 10, 15 years.
Absolutely. That is, I absolutely agree with that. Now is the time to look past the negativity, look at the positive, and pivot if you must, and just push forward. And I think we could see an economic resurgence and a coming together like we've never seen. I think it's going to be really positive. Well, I thank you so much, Solomon, for being on the show and for imparting your wisdom and educating me about tertiary investments and what you're doing, and enlightening me on some of those things, and also bringing up the positivity for local communities and what we can do to change. Basically, we can make a lot of change right now, and I just love that. So thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Okay, Tammy, take us away.
All right. Thanks again, Solomon, and thank you, Jennifer, for hosting today. And I will have all of the information to reach Solomon in the show notes for this, so you can look him up. If you do have any questions for Leafy Podcast, please email me at Tammy, Tammy, at leafylegalservices.com, and I'll get right back to you. And as always, you can find us on social media at Leafy Legal, and also on all platforms that you can listen to podcasts on at Leafy Legal. So thank you again for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day and are staying safe, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye for now.
Attention real estate investors and entrepreneurs. Did you know that real estate investors are a primary target for lawsuits? According to the National Survey of the Court data, 25% of Americans risk being sued in their lifetime. However, if you are a real estate investor, you have a 95% chance of being sued in the next 20 years. Leafy Legal Services helps you protect your assets and strategically grow your business and wealth. Leafy Legal Services are experts at the Series LLC and Delaware Statutory Trust, two of the newest and most ideal legal structures for real estate investors. Leafy Legal Services have the most personalized and affordable solutions for setting up LLCs. Property owners are always at risk when it comes to their assets. Anonymity is so important. If you own just a rental house and you own your home, you have to protect yourself and your properties from any potential legal issues. Leafy Legal Services have the right solutions to make sure you are happy and feel secure. They offer cost-effective documentation that suits their clients' needs. For a free consultation and ebook, visit leafylegalservices.com. They are waiting to hear from you. leafylegalservices.com.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Don't wait. Take action now. LeafyLegalServices.com. Protect your assets, grow your business, and manage your wealth.